dealing with synthetic drugs, I want to take just care of one piece of administrative matter. We have a House Bill 5497. It's a McMaster bill that deals with insurance coverage for airplane medical equipment. It was sent to this committee mistakenly, and what I would like to do is have a motion from Vice Chair Heisey to refer this bill to the Committee on Insurance. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Questions referring House Bill 5497 to the Committee on Insurance. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Representatives Heisey?
Yes.
Horn?
Yes.
Damrow?
Yes.
Muxlow?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Battaglia?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Cotter?
Yes.
Graves?
Yes.
Meadows? Constant?
Yes.
Oakes? Brown?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Alumba? Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. House Bill 5497 has been referred to the Committee on Insurance.
Thank you. Again, the purpose of this meeting was to address a substance that I think all of us are concerned with. That's K2 and synthetic drugs. The bills that we're going to hear about today are the final two out of a 4-bill package. The Senate bill was just referred to the House last week, and last Thursday we received the language from our Legislative Service Bureau for the House bill. As soon as I had those pieces in hand, spoke with the committee, and we agreed to move forward quickly. And again, appreciates everyone's cooperation in bringing this forward. And with that brief, very bird's eye view, I'm going to ask that Representative Somerville please come forward. He has House Bill 5714. And I'm also going to ask Mr. Scheibele from Senator Hildebrand's office to come forward. He has Senate Bill 1082. For those of you familiar with our operations here, Senator Hildebrand is in session in the Senate. They're actually voting right now, and he's not able to be with us personally, but Mr. Scheibele is quite capable and will be able to join us. Gentlemen?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Glad to see I'm creating so much excitement this morning as first day of the week. No, I'm excited. Obviously, as we continue on with the K2 and the synthetic drug issue, we need to make sure that we have all the tools in the toolbox to keep up with the evolution of these synthetic drugs. What my bill does is it's tie-barred to Senate Bill 789, which is actually the bill that creates the mechanism for a controlled substance to be considered a controlled substance. What this bill does is it allows LARA to promulgate emergency rules to put in place to determine whether a drug should be considered a controlled substance. Specifically, what it does is there's two sections in the Act, sections 41 and 42. 41 requires a public hearing. Section 42 requires that be posted 10 days prior to the actual hearing. So what this does is it dispenses of those procedural rules. Then the bill would then go through a process through ORR and then through the LSB and back, and then the actual rule would have immediate effect until three things happen. Either an identical or similar rule is promulgated, and an identical or similar bill is enacted, or lastly, the administrator determines the emergency rule is no longer needed. So as we move forward, we want to make sure, again, that this bill expedites the process so that we can continue to keep up with the fast-paced evolution of these dangerous drugs. I urge my colleagues' support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And members, my intention is to accept testimony on both bills, and once we're done with our questions regarding the testimony and those who come before us, we'll vote out the bills. If we are all in agreement, we'll move those on to the House. The goal is to get these out of the House and over to the Senate and to the governor as quickly as possible. In addition, I want to indicate that we do have people here from Michigan State Police and from the Department of Community Health. So if you do have questions for either of those organizations, they'll step forward. Mr. Scheibele?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and once again, Senator Hildebrand sends his apologies. We are in session right now voting, so I'll try to pinch hit for him today. Senate Bill 1082 came to us as a direct plea from our juvenile court judge in Kent County, Judge Patricia Gardner. She had contacted us back in November of last year and said, you know, I'm seeing these cases coming through of juveniles who are having psychotic breaks, who are coming through the system, and for no other reason than they're on these synthetic drugs. I thought we outlawed them. I said, well, we did outlaw them. Unfortunately, these drug manufacturers are malicious in their intent, and they skirt the law. And so we did some research and looked at what other states had done. We specifically looked at New Jersey. That seemed to be something that a lot of states were looking to, and what New Jersey had done in manipulating the chemical compounds and the way we define them in the law. And so what our law 1082 represents, and there is an H1 before you that cleans up some of the chemical compounds with our work with the chemists at DCH. What it does is provides greater flexibility and kind of treats these as the evolving structure that they are. Additionally, there's a retail component in our bill, which attempts to get at some of the marketing gimmicks that these individuals pursue in regards to, once we list it, they turn around and call it the new K2. Well, we already made K2 illegal, so why are you calling it the new K2? That's what we're trying to get at with that section. And then the last part of this is an enacting effective date of July 1st of this year. That was something that came to us resoundingly from the administration, that they need to go out and get this stuff off the streets as soon as possible. And so our bill will get the chemical list up to date, and then the rest of the bills in the package really address the long-term solution for how we address future chemicals that enter the marketplace.
Thank you. We do have a question from Representative Constant.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this legislation. That's the real trick, is the fact that most of this substance is manufactured often overseas, and when a particular formulation is banned, another formulation comes out, and someone would have to make an arrest, send the substance to the lab, have it come back, and you'd have to bring in the experts and testify, and it could take months, if not longer. So I think this is a very good approach. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Representative Horn and then Representative Irwin.
Thank you for bringing these bills. I know we've had a little bit of testimony on the senator's bill previously. I think kind of a refresher class for us, and I know that you have it controlled. You read the bill, but we want to make sure that this is not government gone wild, that we're not just going to take any chemical and then ask Lara to be able to make rules of any sort. This is very specific to this problem, isn't it? Where we can identify this this chemical, this drug, and then the rules that they can promulgate are very specifically wrapped around this one item. So I can't, that they're not going to go crazy and walk into the local Kroger and say, milk, I got the chemical for that. We can make this an illegal drug. This is you have this pretty well tightened down to where the Department of Health and our public safety officials can work together and make this happen. Is that correct?
Representative Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it seems to me that we've been playing this cat and mouse game for quite some time, and I certainly hope that this piece of legislation has some sort of effect on the problem, because it seems to me that the others that have been passed haven't. So my only concern about this is, is this really going to solve the problem, or is this going to continue the cat and mouse game? So my question is, you've looked into this, I think, quite a bit more than I have, and you were just talking about DCH chemists. So I'm wondering if you can answer this question for me. This product, if you can even call it a product, has been reformulated many, many times. In looking at the product as it's changing, has it been getting more harmful or less harmful as the purveyors of the product have sought to reformulate and try to make their product continue to be legal?
Sure. And Mr. Chairman, if you permit me, I'd like to have DCH come up, the chemist, or someone from MSP to speak to that. I mean, I can say anecdotally that the way we worked to set up these chemical compounds in this were, because we've had these chemicals on the marketplace for some time now, our chemists and our individuals in law enforcement have figured out ways to identify different ways for us to list these, to make them more flexible and more open-ended. So as they evolve, we're attaching it to, and I'll let the chemists speak to that, because there's a specific term that we opened them up a little bit, I believe. Right.
Well, and gentlemen, if you could please just state your names for our record and the organization. We're certainly familiar with you, but we need to get it into the record. Thank you.
I'm Dr. David Wade. I'm a toxicologist with the Michigan Department of Community Health. Correct. What we've done is, rather than list specific chemicals, we've listed classifications. that include all the derivatives that could be made of that basic structure, so that a chemist can't come along and just pull a methyl group off of it and put an ethyl group on it as something new. We have that covered. Or change the halogen on it from chlorine to bromine, and it's now brand new. That would not be the case with the way we have this spelled out.
My name is Sergeant Gill with the Michigan State Police, and as to your question if these substances are getting any more potent, I think that regardless if they're getting any more potent or not, the substances are still bad, they're awful, and they are giving children these side effects that we're trying to fight right now. So we don't have any anecdotal evidence to say if they are getting any potent or not, but just like some individuals who have been researching this legislation have said that some substances may not even have side effects. Other ones do have very harmful side effects. So the bottom line is just to get them all off of the shelves.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gill. The reason why I asked the question, obviously, is because it seems as though there's been more and more documented health problems occurring from these substances recently versus what we were seeing a few years ago when these products first started hitting store shelves. And, you know, certainly the question that I first asked when I saw these products out there on the market was, who in their right mind would buy this product? Have any of you either answered that question for yourselves, or have you actually talked to any of the purchasers of these products to find out why these people are buying them? Because I guess the point I'm trying to make with my question is, and if you can embed an answer to this in your answer, I would love it, you know, people are buying this stuff for a reason, and if we can somehow get to the demand side of the equation, we're going to be much more successful in stopping any harm from these substances, because as you all know, we've been engaged in a quote-unquote war on drugs for many, many, many years, and it has been a war that the people have really lost in every possible way. And so what I'm wondering is, what do these bills do, if anything, to get to the demand side, and what sort of contemplation have you given to that side of the equation?
Yeah, and Representative Irwin, I certainly appreciate that, and through the chair to the representative. I think when we ask the question, why do individuals do what they do when it comes to illicit drugs? Why does somebody choose to huff? You know, we've had that where people have been huffing aerosol cans. It makes no sense to the average person who doesn't have addiction, who doesn't have that that part of them that needs to be fed through an addictive chemical. One of the things, I think the reason why the prevalence of these has increased so much, even though we've outlawed some of the earlier forms of it, is because more people start talking about it. Teenagers and individuals who are looking to get high will do it however they can, if they want to. And so if their friend says, oh yeah, I just went down to the BP station down at the corner and just bought this great stuff and it was an awesome high, you should do it too. I mean, I don't know how we change that mentality. But what we can do is try to get these items off the street and off the shelves, and I think that's the goal, the overall goal of this package.
Representative Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors of these bills. How did these bills, or a few months back, this committee passed out some bills that empower the Department of Community Health to be proactive and to, take administrative steps to outlaw these drugs as they were redeveloped. What happened to those bills, or why weren't those bills effective enough?
Go ahead. These bills, these two that are before us right now, will work in concert with those, and all four will move together as a package. So essentially, there was some technical cleanup work that needed to be done on the bills that were presented to the committee earlier. I believe Senator Jones and Representative McBroom's bills. Those were clarified, and then there was an additional piece with Representative Somerville's bill that needed to be incorporated. Ours kind of came along as an afterthought because we started working on this issue separate of what the long-term solution was, because this is an immediate solution, whereas the other three bills are kind of dealing with this issue on the long term and how we can treat these chemicals as they enter the marketplace in the future. Our bill, 1082, will update the list today to everything that's out there on the marketplace.
There's been considerable conversation between the Department of Community Health, LARA, Michigan State Police, the governor's office, and the legislature in terms of making the other two bills work well with these. So that's what took the time. And specifically, Representative Somerville's bill is the final piece, was available from LSB on Thursday. That's why we moved it today to get this going. Representative Heisey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I guess to answer the question that was posed earlier, how do you change the mentality? Somebody mentioned up here, you'd start changing the mentality by banning this and making it illegal. I've got 2 kids, and the word on the street in the high school is this is okay because it's legal, because I can buy it at a store. And so that's how you start by changing the mentality, is by making it illegal and making it hard to get, which now leads me to my second question. It's more of a law enforcement issue. Once this is implemented, and we are essentially identifying these products on the fly as they hit the streets, what is the procedure for law enforcement in concert with DCH to get the word out to the local police? And then what role, if any, should the public play in helping law enforcement to identify new products, which I am sure will also hit the streets? So what's the procedure for law enforcement now, once this becomes law? And then what is the role of the public to assist you in identifying those new products that will inevitably come forward?
Representative, what I can say is the role of law enforcement in regard to this particular bill is, number one, these bills should become effective on July the 1st. I've talked with our director of Michigan State Police, and she plans on having us do a public awareness campaign that these substances are going to be banned, and that when the effective date is. So first of all, we'll be able to give notice publicly to these retailers to get this stuff off their shelves. If they don't get this stuff off their shelves by July 1st, we're going to do a concentrated campaign, Michigan State Police taking the lead, along with local and our county partners, to go in to these stores, shops, gas stations, and get this stuff off the shelves. We've been doing it now through our tobacco tax enforcement, going in doing administrative inspections of stores, and if we find this stuff, we've been seizing it. We test it, and if it has some of the compounds that are illegal, we seek a warrant for the individuals that are selling it. But as you know, we will be at the forefront of doing a public service campaign.
But as a follow-up, though, you're also going to be needing the assistance of the public.
Absolutely.
To talk to state police, or do they talk to their local police department?
They can talk to their local police department. They can talk to their state police. We're in every county in Michigan as well. We work hand in hand with local law enforcement. They need to notify us, and through the design of our public service campaign, I'm sure that they'll have a component on how they can report this type of violations.
I would also recommend that you work with the schools. I mean, I represent the 3rd largest school district in Michigan, and it is a problem for us.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think it's something that you need to coordinate with the schools, because the kids are going to know what the new varieties are and where they're available. So,
yes, sir.
Just a thought.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hildebrand's office and Representative Somerville for taking lead on this, and I thank you, Chair, for putting this on the fast track. Our local public authorities have been asking and demanding that we do something for a while now. And I also want to echo Representative Heisey's comments. When you talk to these kids, I work with our local sheriffs, both Bouchard and Bickel. And when you talk to these kids and you tell them, you try to tell them what they're doing is wrong, they say, how can it be bad if it's legal? It sends a mixed message. So yeah, the first thing you do is ban it. And this is a good step. My question to the board here, and I'm not sure if the chemist or someone can answer this, is what mechanism does the local authorities use to understand, okay, now they've changed the formulation, I now have the authority to ban this based on, is there a chemical formulation that to understand, or who do they contact?
Well, unfortunately, the way it works right now for us at Public Health is we work with the Poison Control Center. There's one poison control center in the state of Michigan. It's at Detroit Children's Hospital, and they're tied to the emergency rooms throughout the state, and it's the emergency rooms that see all the kids that come in with the adverse health effects. That gets reported to Poison Control Center, then that comes to us. Poison Control Center can tell us from their chemists what is in the compound, and then that information gets relayed to state police and other hospitals around the state that may have people coming in with these effects.
And that's filtered down to the local authority?
Yes, it is.
And then as far as the state police is concerned, Representative, during our investigations of illegal substances, we will go in and we don't have a field test right now to be able to just, do a field test and find out if it has that particular compound. But we will still seize it because we have probable cause to believe that this substances are illegal and do a chemical test on it. And if we do find out that it has the root illegal compound in it, we will issue a warrant.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Damrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That Sergeant Gill just kind of hit on a point I was going to get at. Was if we do seize some type of product and we find something new, I would ask that we are notified immediately in the legislature to start getting on this again. If we have to create some new legislation to address, who knows what could come up next. And it could come up in the next 24 hours. But as soon as that comes across to local law enforcement or prosecutors or the Department of Health, whoever it may be, that you notify us immediately that we do move forward with creating the needed legislation to stop this. We found that a moral standard alone didn't stop party store owners and gas station owners and whoever else for selling this product. That we had to create legislation to stop it because we found out that these little stores were making $10,000 or $20,000 a month. Some were making more profit in a month selling these products to the kids than they would make in an entire year. So this has got to stop. Please let us know if you do hear of anything right away, and we will make the legislation needed to stop it again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could have talked longer. I didn't know you were standing.
Thank you, and sorry that I had to step away just for a moment. Are there any additional questions for the gentleman that we have before us? Representative Brown?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I thought you saw me before. Well, first, I want to thank you for bringing this legislation. I had one of the bills last term, and it's really hard for me knowing that it wasn't effective, and especially because the tragedies that happen in my district. And a lot of people have talked about changing the mentality. And I'm offering an amendment that changes it from a misdemeanor to a felony, and I'm hoping that you will support that. I think that will send a very strong message that these are very dangerous substances. And actually, it was suggested to me last night, the West Bloomfield Town Board meeting, and I'm proud to say my community is the first one to pass a ban. And with their penalties, it's $500 and 90 days in jail. But, as a legislature, I think we need to have a stronger penalty. We need to make a strong statement. And actually, it was one of the township trustees who is who works for the prosecutor's office in Macomb County who suggested that we make this sort of penalty for this. So 4 years, $20,000. So I just wanted to speak to that. I hope it's not out of turn, Mr. Chair.
No, that's fine, and I appreciate you doing so. Okay. Mr. Scheibel, you may or may not have an opinion. It might be something that we take care of at committee, or we might have to work on it between now and the floor. But do you have any opinion?
Yeah, I can say, and through you, Mr. Chairman, to Representative Brown, we certainly appreciate this, and we can take a look at it. This language, this particular section, is something that the House Policy Office has identified might need a little bit of tweaking. And the Prosecutors Association is also working with us, and we're going to have a discussion after committee today to see if there is some changes that need to be made to this particular section. I can just say we can commit to having the discussion, and certainly the chairman's prerogative and the members of the committee how they decide to act on this amendment. But obviously, this particular section of the bill is still fluid.
Okay. Well, it's on 1082, and when we get to that, we'll certainly run the amendment. I can't predict what we'll end up with, but what I'm hearing is the senator's office is willing to work on this before it gets to the House floor, which will be today or tomorrow, hopefully, if we move along quickly. Are there any additional questions for the Representative Patalia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I applaud both you gentlemen for doing this. I'm not sure if I can put this in a question form or not, but in Alpena, Judge LaCrosse has formed a group about 1.5 years ago to try to deal with these issues. And as a freshman legislator, and being naive when it comes to drugs, I'm amazed that people know what to do here. I mean, these young people know what to do. What was brought to my attention just 2 weeks ago is a couple of our local establishments within Alpena County are taking bridge cards for a pickle or a slice of ham for $35, and then you go up to the K2 rack and you take a pull or whatever you take. Is there any thought on what we might do here? I mean, they've asked me to throw some legislation together. Is there anything in your bills that are possibly addressing this, or an amendment that might be thrown on? The thought is you can't use a bridge card for promotion of a non-food item.
Representative Patalia, I'd say that would, not knowing the specifics of it, but in my experience with DHS and working with them in the past, that's clearly welfare fraud, and I believe we have mechanisms in place right now to address that, and I know we've been strengthening those rules and can certainly look at the possibility of that. But that's plain and simple welfare fraud. I mean, if they're doing that, that's something that DHS should be alerted to. And
well, they're saying it's not, because they could simply say you could buy a food item and get a bar of soap. This is not an illegal product to K2s. That's the problem.
I see what you're saying. If they're using, their cash assistance.
If you're calling it incense or potpourri.
So in those instances, because I don't believe and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if DCH can answer if K2 and those items are considered a food product, then they wouldn't be eligible. If they're not considered a food item, they wouldn't be eligible for SNAP, for food assistance. But if they, it could be
you're buying a product
assistance.
and they're giving you.
If I can interrupt just for a moment.
Go.
Even if your comments were correct and needed to be pursued, that section of the law is not impacted by the bills before us.
Okay, that was my question.
So it's a valid question, but an amendment to these bills would be inappropriate.
Okay,
it would have to appear in another section of the law. So I think it's something that if you're willing to pursue and introduce a bill, it's something that we could bring back to this committee or to the appropriate committee and address.
Okay.
I'm not trying to diminish
I agree with you. Thank you.
But it's nothing that we can do in these two bills. Okay. Any additional questions? Gentlemen, thank you. We do have a number of people who wish to testify this morning. We're going to begin with Representative Duraney. I appreciate you coming this morning. And he has a guest, and I apologize, I may have a card for you, but Representative Duraney, if you could introduce your guest, I would appreciate that.
Thomas Fullerton from Better's Payments.
Thank you. I had handed your card right back to Bob Constant, and I apologize. Okay. Representative Duraney?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Walsh and members of the committee, for allowing me to testify today regarding in support of House Bill 5714 and Senate Bill 1082. I am confident by now that we are all aware of the devastating effects caused by the use of synthetic drugs like K2 or spice. And I'm sure many of you have heard of the tragedy that touched my hometown of Dearborn and Representative Brown's constituent. We lost a beloved community supporter who worked in the Dearborn school system. He was a dear friend to many in Dearborn and also a friend of mine. This individual was attacked by a family member who was under the influence of spice. And while we are still trying to make sense of this horrific situation, these substances have clearly become a great concern in my community. However, this problem is not limited to one city or one town. Unfortunately, we have seen a surge in the sale of the use of these dangerous substances throughout the state. And it's no secret that these synthetic drugs have been marketed to our youth. While the state was able to successfully pass a law in 2010 that banned the possession of certain synthetic substances, we know now that manufacturers have been able to get around the law by simply changing the chemical makeup and the ingredients in the herbal mixture in synthetic cannabinoids. And because these chemical cocktails consistently undergo changes, these substances today are substantially more dangerous than the drugs that they intended to mimic. As a matter of fact, our Dearborn police chief and the city of Dearborn has referred to these substances as a major health epidemic, and is currently working to create an emergency ordinance in the city of Dearborn to have these products immediately removed from the shelves. But once again, this is not limited to the city of Dearborn, and that is why our chief supports the state legislation in these two bills. It is so important to give law enforcement officials the tools and resources necessary to protect our families and our communities. So again, I want to thank the committee and the chair for the opportunity to testify today, and I urge support of House Bill 5714 and Senate Bill 1082. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Fullerton?
I'd like to thank everybody for actually hearing me out today. I offer a unique position that's going to empower the public, the police, and I believe the Michigan legislature. My company, Veterus Payments, we represent over 20 different banks domestically and internationally in what's called merchant processing, or the ability to accept credit cards and checks via the merchant processing. About a year and a half ago, the processors that we and banks that we represent decided there were going to be a zero liability and no tolerance policy with any herbal incense or spice type products. If a merchant came to us asking for an account to process online or even sell in a gas station, they were basically denied the ability to process their credit cards. If we catch these days any of our merchants that we're currently processing selling any of these spices, their merchant accounts will be terminated. If they basically try to hide the fact that they're selling this product, if they're going under a different service industry code, not only are their merchant accounts terminated, but they're terminated permanently, so they do not have the ability to process anything, gas, whatever they're selling in their store. Basically the merchant account will be removed, and doesn't matter which bank they go to, they just won't be able to get the ability to process credit cards. I think that in today's market, I understand that you guys have a difficult time passing laws to basically take care of this problem, but why not hit them where it hurts the most? And that's the ability to take credit cards and checks. Since most of these merchants, it's anywhere between 65 and 85% of their business is credit card processing. If the banks or processors are notified, there's a good chance that that particular bank has a zero tolerance policy and will terminate that merchant account.
Thank you for being here today and letting us know that. Sure. Do we have questions?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Heisey.
Thanks. I appreciate your efforts to control this on the merchant end, but I want to reiterate the concerns that I've had previously, which is if you put marijuana or cocaine on the shelf, it doesn't change. Marijuana is marijuana. Cocaine is cocaine for the most part, okay? But this is something that I think that the manufacturers are going to continue to manipulate, and hopefully not in concert with merchants, but that people are going to be finding ways, as they have in the past, to work around the system and get this back on the store shelves. So I have great respect for what you're doing, but I also think that this is going to require additional vigilance from the consumer, as we are seeing in Dearborn and other communities where parents and others are identifying these shops and protesting, and et cetera. And so I'm just saying that I think it's going to be a concerted effort between what you're doing on the merchant end and what we need to do on the consumer end.
Well, let me answer that. Actually, since we are bank representatives for a large number of banks, be it Charter One, Royal Bank of Scotland, Wells Fargo, we're a dual agent between the banks and the merchants. But what this does, this allows for the public or the police or even the Michigan legislature, if there was transparency in finding out who their processor was before these laws are even passed, if they find out if the public were to find out, if I were to go to, let's say, a particular gas station and find out that they're selling that K2, and find out that they're processing with, let's say, Charter One, and somebody was to contact Charter One saying they're selling this product, there's a good chance that they have about 15 days before their merchant account, their ability to process any more is terminated, because the bank has a zero tolerance policy. So it's more than just, it allows the police and the public to actively go forward and exercise their own initiative and find out who that processor is and shut them down that way. So I'm sure that they're going to pull that off the shelf if they find out that they're going to lose the ability to be able to process credit cards or take funds in.
Do we have any additional questions? Seeing none, gentlemen, thank you both for joining us this morning. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to Rick Stathakis. He is the supervisor of Shelby Township. He wanted to speak to us for a couple of minutes on the bills. Good morning.
Good morning. Speak. There we go. Thank you very much for giving me a couple of minutes here to speak on behalf of my township. As you know, herbal and scents products, which consists of plant material laced with chemicals that have not been approved by the FDA for human consumption, are being used by our teens and posing a severe health risk. We here in Shelby Township at grassroots level, as well as our township board level, are working to end this availability in our township stores. However, among the problems with Shelby Township taking this issue head on instead of the state of Michigan is that Shelby Township ordinances and policies only affect those vendors located in our community. And that's why we need state action now. So I'm here to urge the legislator as well as the governor's office to fashion a law that would allow law enforcement to keep up with a constant reformulation of this synthetic marijuana. That is, a designated state official that should have the authority to designate different and new versions of K2 as illegal, so that the manufacturers and retailers cannot continue to conspire to produce a drug with such devastating effects on our youth. And we in Shelby Township will continue to do everything we can, and we ask you to join in our efforts, and I know that you're doing that now, and I really do appreciate that. That's what I have to say as a supervisor, but as a parent, I just want to let you know that, we did have a rally, and it really started off as a boycott because there was a specific gas station in Shelby Township that was selling this K2. And I don't know if you heard about it or read about it, but within probably 20 minutes, 10 people turned into about 250. And I was there, and I talked to a lot of moms and dads. I've never seen so many tears in my life, especially a few mothers who came up to me just sobbing, showing me pictures of their kids, asking me to do something about this. And it was unbelievable. It was one of the most emotional, it was a significant emotional event for me, to put it plainly. And this is very, very important. And I know that this group of parents have mobilized. And of course, you probably have heard about our Macomb County K2 comp program, whereas Macomb County now is going in, and the health department, that is, anyone who's selling K2 starting today will have it taken off their shelves. It will be immediately confiscated in Macomb County. And also I want to say that whoever gets caught, it will be $200 and some time in jail perhaps. But in Shelby Township, we have a second step to that program too. These 250 parents, and that number is growing, they will actually get involved. And the following Saturday, when these people actually get caught, there will be a rally in front of their shop or retailer stance, letting the community know that these people were caught. This is a very big initiative in my community, and I'm really happy that the parents are stepping up, because this is something that we simply cannot do by ourselves, and we need this passed as quickly as possible. And I know that Macomb County is doing everything they can. We are going to try to take matters in our own hand on township level, but we realize there's only so much we can do. So I'm glad to see that Macomb County has stepped up, but I am happier that that you are having this discussion, and I really hope that this will be passionately passed, and it sounds like it will in a record amount of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Supervisor Stathakis? Yes, Representative Horn.
I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask this question, but maybe your dad hat will help us. I just had a tweet from a constituent saying this is a good start, what we're doing in the convenience stores, but is this a product that you can buy online? Are we going to just shift the purchasing habits of these kids, and maybe maybe we can get an answer at some point, not from you necessarily, but I'm just using you as the kind of the vehicle to ask this question because it just popped up.
We, Representative Horn, we do have members from DCH nodding their head in the audience. You're welcome to answer, but we can also call them up.
No, I'll go ahead and call them up, but I just want to say that anything you can do, and I know it's not going to be foolproof, whatever we do, but I'm just really happy that all of you seem to be stepping up. And if I could just address Representative Irwin through you, I just want to tell him that if he ever wants to find out what the answer to that question is about where does this demand come from, you just need to come to a rally of any kind, and the parents will look at you in the eye and say, it's all about a 20-minute high that my son or daughter get, not my son or daughter, but theirs. And that's what it's all about. And, they may go through the whole day hurting and aching, but that 20-minute high is exactly what's in it for them. And it's an addiction as well. So it's not called a drug. I understand that. But you know what? It's got the same symptoms as a drug. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did anybody want to comment on Representative Horn's question? If you wouldn't mind stepping forward, Doctor, thank you for agreeing to field that question.
Unfortunately, yes. You can go online and order just about anything. But what we have here is a step to at least handle what's on the store shelves right now. It's a step in the right direction. Then we'll have to do something further down the line in terms of the online stuff.
Thank you. We have a card from Scott Weinberg. He is the family of Oliver Smith. He's got some personal information regarding this matter. Mr. Weinberg, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Scott Weinberg. I'm a practicing attorney for 25 years. I'm a former prosecuting attorney and currently practice criminal defense in many counties through the state. I'm also licensed to practice in Illinois. I'm here to inform this body of the problems I've personally seen with clients using spice and K2, or so-called synthetic marijuana. I'm also the attorney for Oliver Satchel Smith, the 18-year-old who last week bought a packet of spice at a local gas station, smoked it, and died as a result of it. First of all, let me say that in my career, I prosecuted hundreds of drug offenders and have represented thousands of defendants charged with drug offenses throughout Michigan, from possession of heroin and marijuana to prescription medication. I've seen it all. But recently, unfortunately, I've seen a tremendous upsurge and a disturbing dependence by teens on spice and K2. They've turned to spice to avoid violating probation, violating bond conditions, and judges and courts, unfortunately, do not have the message and have not been testing regularly for these drugs. Spice is addicting. I'm not a doctor, but I'm not a treating substance abuse counselor, but I am on the front lines every single day, and I talk to teens every day, trying to get them out of the revolving door of substance abuse and back on track. And I can tell you from this personal perspective that spice and K2 seems to be one of the hardest drugs for these kids to kick. I speak with judges and probation officers and police every day, and most commonly misunderstood is this new drug. The problem is that the community is completely uneducated up to this point about the dangers of spice. It's in our gas stations where our kids buy gum and candy. It's marketed and packaged in enticing ways that sound cool to these kids. It's marketed to them in every way possible. You heard that store owners make small fortunes at the expense of our kids, and the public is still unaware. In fact, my client, Oliver, tried to get treatment for this addiction. We worked with him for some time, trying to get him into county facilities. We actually tried to get him into a county clinic in Oakland County, and they refused to treat him for spice because they felt that it was not an addictive drug. Finally, Oliver's family found a treatment facility, and he was treated for it, and they thought he was safe. And unfortunately, as Representative Brown had said, the drug had a hold on Oliver, and he smoked it 10 days ago, and he died. I implore you, not just as a father, but as an attorney, I implore you to don't pass on this chance to tell the merchants and to tell the public that we have a way now to try and protect our children, that using this drug is dangerous. It's too risky. Kids are always going to find ways to use recreational drugs, but making it illegal is the first step. No one should go to their own child's funeral or their clients like I did last week, especially when it could have been avoided with education and legislation. I do have a letter from Oliver's family that I'd like to read into the record, Mr. Chairman. On Friday, May 26, 2012, our son, Oliver Satchel Smith, died after smoking a form of synthetic cannabis, which he had purchased legally at a local gas station. He was 18 years old. Oliver was a boy that carried a soulful light in his smile. Rooms, and more importantly, people lit up when he smiled. He smiled. His smile was who he was. Oliver was our son. He knew he was loved. He was told every day he lived, and was never shy about giving love to those he knew. Oliver was Austin and Preston's brother. Oliver was a nephew, a cousin, a dear friend, a fellow scout, teammate, neighbor, and acquaintance. We will remember Oliver forever as the son and brother we so proudly shared with the world for 18 years. And now that, just because he left us, doesn't mean he loves us any less. It is critical that we shine a white-hot spotlight on the fact that unregulated, highly addictive, deadly synthetic drugs made solely for the purpose of being smoked are being distributed and sold all across Michigan and several other states. Retailers who sell these products are knowingly profiting from pain and suffering, in far too many cases, death. October 28, 1993 gave us a beautiful boy. On May 25, 2012, a man-made drug took him from us. We applaud and fully support your efforts to ban these drugs from store shelves. As a result of your legislation, immeasurable suffering and senseless death can be avoided. Sincerely, Larry, Mary Jo, Austin, and Preston Smith. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Weinberg, if you could leave us with a copy of your statement or send it to us to the clerk through my office or to the clerk's office, I'd appreciate that.
I will do that. Thank you.
That way we can get it entered into the records for the committee.
I will.
Are there questions, members? Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. We have two more people wishing to speak, and then we have a number of cards to read in. Paul Candino, on behalf of the Associated Food and Petroleum Dealers, is here to address us. Mr. Candino, welcome. Former chair of the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to committee members for taking up these, what I think is, at least at this point, a completion or close to a completion of important package of bills that we support. You have my testimony, and so I will do something, Mr. Chairman, that you haven't seen me do before, and that is to be brief. And I will let you know that this issue of spice and K2 and the work that many of you had done and outlined and trying to ban these previously, Rep. Brown and others and members right here at this committee came to my attention in 2009 as a member of the Michigan Parole and Commutations Board. I was sitting as administrative law judge in that capacity hearing parole violations, and the belief by many of these young kids was that it wasn't violating the law, even though it led to other criminal behavior. And I am touched with the number of cases where medical doctors came before me to testify about the harm that this was physically causing our youth. move 3 years later. I'm in a position now as the Vice President of Government Relations with the Associated Food and Petroleum Dealers to not only try to educate folks, and I could put my head in the sand and say none of our members, despite our weekly e-blast and our copious amounts of writing, sell this stuff. But I know that that's probably not true. And so beyond education, we are asking for more tools for law enforcement by passing this. And I think you have my testimony that supports all of these. This stuff is toxic. It's lethal. And we must do something about it. I appeared in West Bloomfield yesterday and was proud to testify for a ban. I'll be in Shelby tonight. I do want to leave you with a 1-800 number. I've discussed this with the representatives of the Michigan State Police. And although, as a former parole board member and my CEO, Adeo Rabo, as a former prosecutor in San Diego County, we have a 1-800 number that is in the letter before you. I'll state that. And we want to use a different perspective, not as law enforcement officers, but as concerned members of the industry trying to put people before profits and using our peer pressure, whether they're a member or not of our association. And I will tell you, I made that offer in West Bloomfield yesterday and told Representative Brown that I had 6 calls this morning, and we are dealing with those. And I'll tell you, 2 of the 6 were our members, but we're going to visit each one of those. And I may have to take a lieutenant in the West Bloomfield Police Department with me, but we're going to put peer pressure in an attempt to educate those folks to get it out of their shelves and do the best they can. That number is 1-800-666, which is ironic, 6233. 1-800-666-6233. Chairman Walsh, we'll make that available to you to decide if you want it on the website and how to use it. The state police is going to use it. And like I said, we're going to monitor this. Education, 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 but we're going to demand that it be removed from the shelves. And we thank you and urge you for yes votes on this entire package. Thank you.
That's some great news, and I appreciate you being here and sharing that with us. I know that Representative Horn had a question.
Oh, yep. And I thought I would get out of here without, thank you, Representative.
Oh, it's not that easy. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Representative, can you walk us through what a convenience store owner might face by a vendor of this? You know, I mean, how does this get on the shelf? What are they selling to the vendor itself? We've heard stories, and there's been TV clips of convenience store owners go, what they do with that, I don't know. You know, how do you get it on your shelf? I mean, if I sold Pepsi or Coca-Cola, I'd be fighting for shelf space. What do they say to your members when they walk in? Just kind of a
you're talking about those who might sell it to them.
Yeah,
we're still trying to figure out where exactly it comes from, and we've done some significant internet research. We're working with the state police on that. Look, here's my view, and I don't know if this will completely answer, Representative, but I think the communication is, well, this is legal. It says on it that it's not for human consumption. It doesn't violate in its composition, although they won't tell you what chemicals have necessarily been sprayed into the compound that often comes from China. And so at the tune of $5,000 a week for some of these folks, thinking they're selling a product, they could put their head in the sand or lie and say that they don't think it's causing that. Do I believe that there are people there who recognize selling this product, that it's causing the harm that it is? Probably not. Most of our community didn't know. But I think those folks selling it clearly, no matter what the manufacturers are telling them, are putting profits before people, and that's going to be our message. I can tell you in the last survey we did, the vast majority of our members were the ones who would quickly remove it if they didn't know that it was causing problems. But we want to get to those who are members or not members and try to let them know that they can be influenced by manufacturers. They could put profits before people, but they do so at their own risk, and we will help close down those businesses by turning them in. I think besides what you're doing, Chairman Walsh, I also think that the actions by the community health departments in each county is a significant tool. There's significant statutory power I think they have to at least temporarily close somebody down, and that speaks volumes. You're right. Then you have a decision. Do I want to sell the stuff that hurts kids, or do I want to sell more Diet Pepsi?
Thank you. Are there additional questions for Mr. Condino? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have a card in from Andrea Schroeder. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. Is it Schroeder or Schrader? Right. Okay, very good. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am not representing a trade organization or a community. I'm not an elected official. I'm just a mom who cares what happens in my town. I represent No Spice K2 Clarkston organization. Like many other groups throughout our state, we're working to get synthetic drug products out of our local stores. Unfortunately, local governments have begun to respond to this civic engagement with their own programs and solutions, and you're all here to consider a legislative solution to fix this. I urge you to support these bills because despite pockets of local success in Michigan, we need a comprehensive statutory solution to get our arms around this growing crisis. No Spice K2 Clarkston is a proactive pledge initiative. It was launched on May 10th by a small group of people working in our community to support the local stores who pledge not to sell these products by promoting awareness in our community of the problem and recognizing what the pledge represents. We've gone door to door to nearly every party store, gas station, and market throughout our community asking owners to take the pledge. Every store that signs the pledge posts it in their door, and then when people go shopping, they see what this pledge is, and it creates awareness of what's going on there. And we publish a list of all the stores that have taken the pledge, both on our website and on our Facebook page. I am happy to report that in just 3 weeks, people in our area are more aware of the public safety risks these products pose and have been noticing the pledge posters and mentioning them to merchants when they're shopping. In fact, I'm hoping that we'll be able to announce that within the next couple of days, we will have 100% pledge participation. And that includes all of Independence Township, Springfield Township, and the city of the Village of Clarkston. The good news is that there are a lot of groups like ours across Michigan, but the bad news is that this patchwork of local solutions creates confusion and frustration and can disenfranchise supporters. These bills would eliminate this piecemeal approach. When community service organizations, governments, and the general public all tackle an issue from different approaches, we often run on parallel purposes. We create inefficiencies and we waste precious resources. Grassroots activism is a lot of work. And educating the public on the issue is harder to sustain in larger communities than it is in bedroom communities. While effective in the short term, it's not a sustainable solution to addressing the issue. Even the most dedicated volunteer can't maintain momentum without support. These bills would provide support for collaborative efforts that can increase awareness while eliminating these drugs. One of the primary challenges we face is that people think these products are harmless because they're legal. It creates a public safety issue, not just for the health and welfare of those who use the drugs, but for everyone else. It's just impossible to ignore the headlines of the crimes involving K2, and it's not just the extreme and tragic events. Michigan courtrooms are full of cases involving less publicized but no less dangerous behaviors caused by the use of spice and K2 type drugs. Teens driving the wrong way on major roads, brandishing weapons in public spaces, and other unpredictable behavior. While the producers of these products in the past have been able to find ways to manipulate the chemical formulas to get around existing law, I believe the use of the chemical analog model in Senate Bill 1082 closes that gap and gives law enforcement and public health officials the tool they need to protect our kids and our communities. Civic activism has been a hallmark of this nation since the Stamp Act of 1865, and there are lots of grassroots Michigan success stories to celebrate in this fight against these synthetic drugs. Our approach is a positive support of the stores that don't sell it. Other communities do boycotts and pickets against those who do, but neither one is, I'm not saying one is better than the other because they both have the same goal of getting these products off the shelves. But our current piecemeal approach, it's inefficient and it's unsustainable, particularly when fighting a legal product. These bills and the ancillary administrative policy bills will provide a comprehensive solution to support our local efforts to educate people about these products. Working together with the public that you represent, you can help us tackle this growing public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? I'd like to say we certainly can pass laws, but they're only successful when people like you work on them. So I do appreciate the effort that you've put in.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of cards to read into the record. Casey Stuckelberg, on behalf of the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, does not wish to speak but supports the bill. Ray Ramsdell of Lara is available. Well, she is available for question. Neutral on the bill. We have one. Already read that one in. Sergeant Gill testified. Carla Garcia from DCH, she and her group have testified, and so I think we've got all the cards in. At this point, what would be appropriate is for us to consider moving 5714 on a motion from Representative Somerville to report that bill out to the House with a recommendation. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Questions reporting House Bill 5714. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Representatives Heisey?
Yes.
Horn?
Well, you know, can we hold, he's testifying in another committee, I'm sorry, he just stepped away. We're going to go at ease for a couple minutes until Representative Horn comes back. He's just across the hallway introducing a bill. As soon as he returns, we'll continue the vote. Thank you for your patience.
So they are taking a break here during the House Judiciary Committee hearing. The House Chair, John Walsh, calling at ease the stance of the Judiciary Committee. We're standing by for Rep. Horn to come back. Rep. Walsh saying that he's introducing a bill in another committee. It'll only be a couple of more minutes, and they'll come back. We're expecting a unanimous vote out of the House Judiciary Committee on this particular bill, 5714, House Bill 5714, and then shortly after that, I believe they're going to vote on Senate Bill 1082. 1082 taking up much of the conversation here today. That being said, as we stand by, I would just like to introduce the idea that this Spice K2 thing, the bath salt thing aside, that the Spice K2 thing, if you look at the history of this in the news, that was not such a problem. This is not a new thing. That thing has been around for a while. Years and years, 5, 6, 7 years that's been around. Interestingly enough, let's just trace the history of that back, if we've got a second, during this at ease call to the chair, to talk about that. The substances themselves, if you look on the back of these packages, the LOL, the Spice, the K2, there's a bunch of different names of them. If you look on the back of them, there are specific chemical references. And they talked about this during these committee hearings, that they've outlawed these specific chemical components in the past, and that chemists have stepped aside and found new ways of changing one portion of a chemical structure and substituting a similar thing in that place to change it so that it gets around the law. It has the same effect or a similar effect, in many cases, obviously, a harsher effect. And my point is this, that these, interestingly enough, these substances, the original substances, were the result of the federal prohibition of marijuana. And I don't want to draw a relationship other than that, because these are completely different things, clearly. But it was the prohibition of marijuana and the lack of federal licensing for research facilities to use these substances for medicinal and other purposes in research, because they wouldn't let you grow it. So the federal government, rather than giving the scientists that created these substances that make up K2 and Spice, rather than giving them a license, they said, no, we'll let you, you don't have to make these substances synthetically. You can't have these natural raw substances. You can't grow these things. There's still a Schedule 1, we're not going to give you a license for it. No. So what they ended up doing was creating these synthetic structures, which then somebody else later found a use for by trying to mimic marijuana in these potpourris, which is what these youth that they're talking about having trouble today latched onto. Hey, look, we can still get high like we were on marijuana, but we're just using the synthetic stuff instead. Nobody knows. Shh, hush. What happened was, when lawmakers found out about this, and it infuriated them, because kids were sidestepping the law, especially as it related to probation or as it related to bond issues. So they outlawed these substances, and that was when you started seeing this become dangerous. And that's the only thing I wanted to point to. It's not necessarily the existence of some of these things that are the problem. It's the pointing of them as being illegal that causes the problem. Starting with marijuana itself, starting with things of like alcohol prohibition itself. And I would even say yes, as it relates to harder drugs. Making them illegal is not necessarily the answer as these people talked about during this committee hearing. It's an opinion. It's also based on fact, if you look at some of the facts before you. I just wanted to draw those correlations because I'm not talking, I don't want, and I don't promote the idea that people could hurt themselves or other people by consuming such substances as they're widely available. I'm not saying that. I think these people are on the right track with the mindset, the thought that these things should be not available. They should be in some way mitigated. They should be in some way inhibited, in some way kept in check. But I would say that it's not always the outright outlawing of them, the banning of them, making the demonizing of them that is necessarily always the way to go. You make them sexier. You force people who make these things to step aside and find other ways around which are more dangerous. You end up being the very demon that you're seeking to hide. So that's my point to this. We're still at ease on call of the chair for the House Judiciary Committee. This is the Judiciary Committee hearing in House Room 521 of the House Office Building. They're at the chair, John Walsh, has called at ease the stance of the House Judiciary Committee as they wait for Rep. Horn to return. He is temporarily indisposed, introducing another bill inside of a different committee. We expect that this will be completely voted unanimously out of the judiciary. And as it relates to current pending legislation, I would say that the medical marijuana community is specifically happy about this.
Call the committee back to order, please. We'll continue voting. Before we proceed, we do have a card in from Attorney General Bill Schuette, who wishes to indicate his support for both bills. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention, we are going to continue with voting on House Bill 5497. Would the clerk please continue voting?
Question once again is reporting House Bill 5714.
That's correct. No, I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct.
Representatives Horn.
Yes.
Damrow.
Yes.
Muxlow.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Battaglia.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cotter.
Yes.
Graves.
Yes.
Meadows. Constant.
Yes.
Oaks. Brown.
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Alumba.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. House Bill 5714 supported the recommendation.
Thank you. Moving on, then, we'll take up Senate Bill 1082. First, Representative Damrow would move that we consider the H1 substitute. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Questions adopting the H1 substitute to Senate Bill 1082. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Representatives Heisey.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Damrow.
Yes.
Muxlow.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Battaglia.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cotter.
Yes.
Graves.
Yes.
Meadows. Constant.
Yes.
Oaks. Brown.
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Alumba.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. The H1 substitute to Senate Bill 1082 is adopted.
Thank you. In addition, we have an amendment to the H1 from Representative Brown. She spoke to that earlier. I would like to report, I did just mention to Representative Brown that Senator Hildebrand's office agrees to the change to the senator's bill. And so when the clerk is ready, would you please call the roll?
Question is the Brown Amendment to Senate Bill 1082 is an H1. Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Representatives Heisey.
Yes.
Horn.
Pass.
Damrow.
Yes.
Muxlow.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Pass.
Battaglia.
Pass.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cotter.
Yes.
Graves.
Yes.
Meadows. Constant.
Yes.
Oaks. Brown.
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Alumba.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have 12 yeas, 0 nays, and 3 passes. The amendment to Senate Bill 1082 as an H1 is adopted.
Thank you. And finally, Representative Damrow moves that we consider sending the H1 substitute as amended to the floor for consideration.
You want to report as an H2?
Yes, we'll report it out as an H2. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Question reporting Senate Bill 1082 as an H2. Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Representatives Heisey.
Aye.
Horn.
Yes.
Damrow.
Yes.
Muxlow.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Battaglia.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cotter.
Yes.
Graves.
Yes.
Meadows. Constant.
Yes.
Oaks. Brown.
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Olumba.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, with 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes, Senate Bill 1082 is reported recommendation as an H2.
Thank you. Thank you to all the committee members and everyone that joined us today that's been a part of this process. With that, I think we have everybody in attendance now. We will.
No, we don't.
On a motion from Vice Chair Heisey, we will excuse our absent members. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
And so there you have it. Just to reiterate, kind of go over what happened there. What you saw happen was they adopted the House version of the Senate bill. It's the H2 version of the Senate bill. And in the H2 version, they adopted the amendment made by Representative Brown. Rep. Brown said that she didn't like the idea that this was more like a misdemeanor, so they converted it to more like a felony. So they took away the original punishment and made it much more severe if you're in possession of or selling anything that they have identified as K2 spice or bath salts. They've recommended that unanimously back out of the House committee, to the Judiciary Committee, back to the House floor for a vote. So we would anticipate that this would be voted on before the end of the day, and that being that I would anticipate that there would be a majority vote on the House floor. Not knowing if there was a majority vote on the Senate floor, I would anticipate that that was likely. If there was a majority vote on the Senate floor and a majority vote on the House floor, this becomes law, and they will have it make immediate effect. So they said, I guess they said that it will become effective on the 1st of July. So they have a month. Store owners would have a month to get this stuff off the shelves. As this relates to House Bill 5681, it does take the carrot and stick away from that. If they pass this today, it would take the carrot and stick away from the dispensary bill. It looks like a big pharma bill designed for big business, for big commercial grows. I believe the traditional medical marijuana community is opposed to that bill and would favor 5580. We'll have Representative Calton on the show this weekend to discuss the difference between House Bill 5580 and House Bill 5681. He's the sponsor of and co-sponsor of those bills, respectively, and how that happened, and what do these bills mean. We'll talk about that on RadioWeedShow.com on the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. It's on AM 1310 WDTW, Detroit's Progressive Talk Live. That would be this Saturday in just a couple of days, and we'll see you then.